talk about this story, which is the fact that half of all claims for Britain's benefits will be for poor health by the end of the parliamentary term. And the cost of payments for sickness will top 100 billion a year. 100 billion a year for people who should be at work and they're not at work because they say they're too sick to be at work. This is a crisis. I can't remember the last time I had a sick day. I can't afford to. I'm freelance. But that means that I'm paying for a lot of people who are having sick days. And frankly, I'm not for it. What do we do about it? Let's speak to Elliot Keck, Head of Campaigns for Taxpayers Alliance. Hi, Elliot.
Good morning, Alex.
I mean, this doesn't surprise me at all. The article goes on to talk about, well, sugar taxes and obesity, and we all know that metabolic syndrome brought about by obesity is hugely injurious to people's health, mental health, diabetes, the lot of it. You're more likely to die of COVID if you were a fatso. But a lot of the claims are now coming from people who say they've got poor mental health. We cannot afford a 100 billion a year bill for people who are sick, can we?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there's a bit of a vicious circle as well between mental health and things like obesity. So obesity will cause bad mental health, but bad mental health will also, of course, impact on obesity. But one of the really interesting things and a sort of an indication that there isn't joined up thinking on this is that Rachel Reeves is talking about the need to get people off long-term sick and off benefits and back into work, and yet at the same time she has massively hiked the jobs tax, massively hiked the cost of hiring new employees and giving new employees a decent wage. So we need to bring in a system and bring in an economy where work is really productive, enjoyable, well paid for as many people as possible, and that will help get people off those benefits. But unfortunately what the Chancellor has done is actually make employment far more expensive.
Well, not just that, this Labour government wants to bring in a raft of workers' rights legislation, including entitlement to sick pay from day one. And what we do know is one of the main cohorts who are not going to work are apparently off sick at 18 to 25-year-olds. It's not baby boomers with broken backs. It's the youngsters who say if they've got anxiety. I'll tell you what would help that, sunshine. Maybe go and mingle. Go and talk to people. Go and occupy your mind and have some purpose and go into the workplace, because there's great dignity in work. Now, the problem I've got with what's going on today is it clearly must be relatively easy for people to say, I'm sick and I can't come to work. Oh, it's anxiety or whatever else it may be, and know that they're going to be protected by the system. And I have genuine sympathy for people who have chronic conditions or have had an accident from which they need to recover, or whatever it may be. There's been a bereavement in the family and you need a bit of compassionate leave. Nobody is suggesting that those things need to be gotten rid of. But it seems to me there's not enough carrot and there's not enough stick. When it comes to carrot, I think when people are sitting at home and deciding they've got anxiety or whatever it may be, whatever reason, they're not at work and they might be choosing not to be, and they might actually be able to go to work if they really pulled their finger out. There's not enough carrot in terms of, like you said, work doesn't pay enough, but also I think people can sit at home and bide their time drumming their fingers quite happily. They've got a gazillion series on Netflix they could be watching, or games they can be playing on their mobile phones. Back in the day, if you were stuck at home without work, you'd go bored within 2 minutes. And there's not enough stick, I don't think, in terms of the ability to get doctor's notes. What do you think a sensible government would need to do, Elliot, in order to tackle this problem? Because 100 billion a year from people who are going to work to pay for those who are not just isn't sustainable, and it's not fair.
Yeah, and one of the really interesting things actually in the Times report on this is it described the United Kingdom as almost unique in the developed world in terms of not returning to the situation before COVID in terms of the long-term sick. So really, a good start would just be getting the country back to where it was before 2020. And listen, we're not a particularly healthy country, but we're not uniquely an unhealthy country, and it's absolutely clear that we have developed a more permissive attitude, an easier attitude towards claiming various benefits, whether it's disability benefits, incapacity benefits, and I think it's also entirely plausible that doctors and the benefit system is allowing people to claim benefits for particularly things like mental health, but also probably some physical ailments as well, far too easily, and we can see that by the explosion in the numbers.
Yeah, where do you stand on this, Tim? Because this really has become, like Elliot's saying, it's quite a unique situation in the UK alone. I think in America, if you tried to pull a fast one when it comes to sickness, you would find yourself out of dosh pretty quickly. I think we probably are a soft touch. But what sort of things should a government be looking at to say this 100 billion a year is not sustainable?
Well, actually, the outgoing Conservative government considering a number of measures, including moving to more an independent assessment of your health. So, it's much easier to get your local GP to sign you off than, sort of an independent physician of some kind. And it's interesting, really, one of the first things Keir Starmer did was scrap all of the reforms that the Conservatives were planning to introduce, because I'm afraid if you are going to get Britain's economy growing, which supposedly is the main objective of this new Labour government, having 2.5 million people sick, paid for by taxpayers, that's a huge burden on the economy. So Labour just aren't getting serious about this, I'm afraid, and it is one of the biggest problems we face as an economy.
We used to have the whole sort of image, didn't we, of the person with disability benefits for then seen running a triathlon or something. But you think even if someone has a physical condition at the moment, there's so much working from home and so many jobs that can be done remotely that you would imagine that sort of the trend should be going in the opposite direction. Elliot, let's talk now about the value for money czar, costing the equivalent of £250,000. Now, he isn't going to cost £250,000 a year as an annual salary because he ain't going to be doing that many days' work. It doesn't seem either efficient or good value for money.
Yeah, so he'll be doing 1 day a week at a cost of about £950 a day, which, as you say, is an annualised salary of almost £250,000. And if you look at his CV, it's a CV almost designed for someone that should not be in this post. So he was played a significant role in delivering the London Olympics, which came 3 times over budget. He's now on the board of HS2, albeit that's a more recent appointment. He was also the COO at the Ministry of Defence, one of Britain's most wasteful government departments. And I think the cherry on the cake, he was the Chief Executive Officer of the Houses of Parliament Restoration Programme, which has just been an absolute calamity. So now maybe some people could say that means he's got incredible experience at running and being involved in projects which deliver horrendous value for money. But I think the other way I'd look at it is that he's someone that seems to be uniquely associated with poor value for money in his time.
But what I don't understand is, what is he supposed to do 1 day a week? I mean, what sort of big difference is this man going to make? Surely the way to get value for money is say to your government departments, right, you've got this budget. You either need to make drastic staff reductions or you need to make sure that you have efficiencies baked in order that we can hit certain targets. You come back to me in 3 months' time and you tell me what you're going to do. What's this man supposed to do? Is he just going to sort of omnipotently, ubiquitously float around Whitehall 1 day a week, sorting out the entire nation's finances and wastefulness?
Yeah, and I think that's actually precisely the problem with not just this quango, but actually many other quangos. So I think there's going to be a team of around 20 to 30 civil servants. But the second you create a quango responsible for value for money, it's the responsibility of that quango, that small team of civil servants, to deliver value for money, when actually the only way to achieve the radical transformation of the public sector that this country needs is for that culture to be embedded in every single nook and cranny of the public sector. And the second you outsource that out to a quango, suddenly that responsibility is taken off the shoulders of the people who should be held responsible for it. The other quango. So I think there's going to be a team of
this budget. You either need to make drastic staff reductions or you need to make sure that you have efficiencies baked in order that we can hit certain targets. You come back to me in 3 months' time and you tell me what you're going to do. What's this man supposed to do? Is he just going to sort of omnipotently, ubiquitously float around Whitehall 1 day a week, sorting out the entire nation's finances and wastefulness?
Yeah, and I think that's actually precisely the problem with not just this quango, but actually many other quangos. So I think there's going to be a team of around 20 to 30 civil servants. But the second you create a quango responsible for value for money, it's the responsibility of that quango, that small team of civil servants, to deliver value for money, when actually the only way to achieve the radical transformation of the public sector that this country needs is for that culture to be embedded in every single nook and cranny of the public sector. And the second you outsource that out to a quango, suddenly that responsibility is taken off the shoulders of the people who should be held responsible for it.
Tim, the bonfire of the Quangos. I remember this. When was that? That was probably when you were in number 10 or something.
No, it was before my time. You can't blame me. You can blame me for lots of things, but not that one.
I wouldn't blame you. I'd celebrate you for coming up with that term.
No, that was at the beginning of the sort of Cameron years, and I don't think it really got very far, really. Maybe a match was lit somewhere, but I don't think the bonfire got going, no.
But what I noticed in the King's speech, the one big takeaway I had at the very start of Labour's tenure in government, when I wasn't Sir Keir Starmer laying it all out, it was our monarch. But one thing I noticed was the creation of, I counted 11 new, committees, councils, whatever it may be, 11 new ones. Bureau, as I think is more suitable in communist terms. What do they do? Why have we got these things?
Here for me, I think, is the big picture, Alex. I am old enough to remember when the Labour Party was essentially a party of industry, car workers, coal miners, etc. A lot of the people that represented the Labour Party in Parliament came from those industries. That's not where the Labour Party is now. This Labour Party, this government, is a public sector party. Public sector unions, local government experience. They've been politicians all their life. And I think we saw that in the budget this week. We saw it in what you've just described in the King's speech, the creation of more committees and public sector bodies. This is the world they know. It's the only world they know. They certainly don't know about farming, the way they introduced that inheritance tax reform that's going to kill the family firm. They don't know how businesses work. None of them have ever run a business. So they say that they're not imposing any new tax on workers. Well, I tell you, if you're, say, running McDonald's or any business firm now, the cost of employing someone has just soared through the roof because of what you've done to employers' national insurance. And if you have a choice between employing someone else in your kitchen or automating your kitchen, it's now much more sensible to automate your kitchen. So there's going to be more unemployment. So why is Labour doing what they're doing? Because we all naturally do what we understand. We are more comfortable at doing what we understand. And Labour only really understand the public sector, local government, politics mentality. They don't understand business. They don't understand enterprise. And what we're getting, I'm afraid, is that whole philosophy that's taken over the Labour Party, now taking over the country. And it's very frightening because it's not going to work.
If we've got an obesity crisis anywhere, it is the fattening up and the ever-growing greed of the public sector.
Absolutely.
Elliot, talking about that, I'm sure you've had time now to sort of ruminate over the budget. I was reading an opinion piece earlier today, and what essentially the commentator was saying is all of this money that they've taken out of the country and into government coffers, which in theory is supposed to be recycled and put back out into society for our own benefit, isn't. A lot of it isn't going to be paid on infrastructure. It isn't going to be given to public services. It's going to be given to the public sector, the people in the unions who have connected to the Labour Party, for their jobs, for their salaries.
Yeah, absolutely. I think probably another sector that I'd throw in that the Labour Party does somewhat understand is the charity sector. But again, that's a sector that receives vast amounts of taxpayer subsidy. And even they, actually, to be fair to them, are warning about the increased cost of employer national insurance. But you're absolutely right, Alex. Ultimately, what we're doing here, what the Labour Party has decided to do, is to take a vast amount of money from the productive bit of the economy, the private sector that has actually seen relatively healthy productivity growth over the last 25 years, and funnel all that money into the unproductive bit of the economy, the bit that actually has seen productivity fall by 7.5% over the last year, despite adding 120,000 workers to the public sector. And the idea that this is going to generate economic growth is absolutely laughable, as the OBR themselves have forecast, with a decreased forecast of growth over the next 5 years.
Yeah, it's disgusting, it's not fair, it is dangerous, it is managed decline. Elliot Keck, Head of Campaigns at Taxpayers Alliance, thank you ever so much.